Welcome, everyone, to ISKCON of Silicon Valley. I was in the classroom in the back with the Kaishori kids, and they're learning about Govardhan Hill. They have been learning about Govardhan Hill and what all the places are around Govardhan Hill. They have a map and they have a book they're following. And so we were just in there talking about Govardhan. And also, for those who might have not have noticed, that over the weekend we had a special seminar here. Yesterday, we were treated to a very in-depth lecture by Radhika Raman Prabhu, who's a great Vaishnava scholar. And today he continued that series at 11 o'clock. So if you feel a special vibration in this room, do you feel a special vibration? A little bit extra, more than usual? It's because there's been so much spiritual activity here. And this is one of the principles of practical spiritual life. Of course, there's theory, and we can talk about philosophy, but then we all would like to feel something, and we'd like to also feel that we're improving in various ways, wouldn't we? Isn't that part of the human experience? There's an expectation that we can be better than we are now. Does anybody ever get that urge? Do you want to improve yourself? Just say yes, even if you don't. Yes. And one exciting aspect of being human is it's possible to improve. One of the points that our lecturer gave yesterday was that as humans we can decide to do the right thing. Dharma means to be aligned with our nature. And we can compare what it's like to use our free will to do something that's high-minded, and we can feel integrity. Or we may have had another experience as well, when we knew what the right thing was and somehow we decided to experiment and do the wrong thing, and then we felt a burden from that. Has anybody had that experience? Just 2, 3 people. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so it seems as if there's a lot hanging in the balance, or that we're balanced and that we can rock either way in life. And having a method to the human experience where we have confidence that if I continue in various practices, that I can improve myself. And it's important to feel that we're tipping in the right direction and that we're getting confidence that I'm really good for it when I decide that I want to do something that I can hold to my plan and I can improve. So one of the ways that one can do this, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, is to hear about what the right thing is. If we don't hear about it, we may get other kinds of suggestions, but hearing about what are practices that help us to improve in life, and then we might think about, maybe I'll try to apply that. One of the practices that's very highly recommended, which is said to be such a foundational aspect of spiritual practice, is to repeat sacred names of God. And it's so important that the teachers of bhakti from antiquity have repeated it again and again. In fact, even in one verse from a book called the Brihat Naradiya Purana, it's repeated 3 times in one verse. You would like to hear the verse? Yes. It says, Hari Nama, Hari Nama, Hari Nama. That was 3 times, right? So Hari Nama means the sacred name of God. Hari Nama, Hari Nama, Hari Nama. And then there's 2 words which are imperatives. Eva and Kevalam. Kevalam means only this, and Eva means certainly only this. So it's pretty emphatic, right? 3 times you say something. Like, do you ever tell one of your kids to clean up his or her room, and you say, now, whatever it is. More than 3 times. More than 3 times in a row. And then you say, oh, she really means it now. And so in the verse it says, Harinama, 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 Eva Kevalam. Those are 2 words you say if you really want to emphasize something, like certainly no other thing besides this. Eva Kevalam, say that. So then it gives us, the verse says that who this is for, especially this instruction. And that is Kalau, and that refers to the age we're in right now. Age meaning that the universe goes through various phases, eras, and one of them is called Kali. So it says Kalau. And it says in this age that we're in now, there's certainly no other process besides repeating the names of God. And then it emphasizes on the other side, says, Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. Saying then, finishing by saying, there's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way. That's an emphatic verse, right? Harinama, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. No other way besides this. So let's sing that verse together. I'll give you a special tune for it. Harinama, Harinama. Just listen to me once, go all the way through. Then we can do it together. Harinama eva kevalam. Kalau nasteva, nasteva, nasteva. Gatiranyata. Y'all want to try it? Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, Kalau nastyeva, 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 Gatiranyata. So it's a foundational part of spiritual practice. And we can remember that certainly this way, no other way, no other way, no other way, just do this, just do this, just do this. So there are many options we have in our lives, and if we find out a fundamental or a basic, you can marry it. Did you know you can marry your basics? You didn't know that? Yeah, so if you find a basic principle that flat out works, you make a proposal like, I would like to marry you. And then you have a wedding somewhere, and it's like, I'm marrying this basic. I'm going to do it every day. We're going to be married for the rest of our lives. So this is one of the ways that the great teachers of bhakti say you can make great advancement. Find out what the most important practice is amongst all the different practices. And then make a proposal and say, yeah, will you marry me? Get on one knee, maybe bring a ring and say, will you marry me? Say, marry the holy name, marry the process of chanting Hare Krishna. So that's one thing that we can do. And then you develop a deep relationship with Krishna through chanting his name. This is what all the great teachers of bhakti say. And another principle that's very practical is that the Bhagavatam, or the Bhagavad Gita rather, says that one can transform matter into spirit. It's like a magic trick, right? You have matter, and you can turn it into spirit. Do you believe me? Yes. Some people didn't say yes, so I'll take it as a no. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, if you use material things to serve Krishna, then they'll change from matter to spirit. What's one thing that you could use in Krishna service that's a material thing? A microphone. Yeah. I could use the microphone to speak about Krishna, right? And what else could you use a microphone for? I could speak about politics. I could sing a cinema song. I know many Bollywood songs. I could sing them. Don't tempt me. Just one you want to hear? So, we could use a Bollywood tune, but we'll sing Hare Krishna to it. How's that? Does that sound okay? Yeah. So, a couple more things. The microphone, car. You could use a car to serve Krishna, right? How would you do that? Go to the temple? Any other thing? Carry books, like Bhagavad Gita, right? Anything else? You could listen to kirtan inside your car. It would So Krishna says, a car is just a car until you use it in his service, and then it turns from matter to spirit. In the Bhagavad Gita, he gives this example of when somebody performs a fire ceremony. There's ghee. What else do you have to have for a fire ceremony? Anybody ever seen one? What do you have to have? Sticks? We use coconut. It doesn't have as much smoke. Okay, you have to have some fuel. Then what else? Ghee. You had to have ghee. What else? A banana. Some grains. Grains. What else do you have to have? A priest. And exactly, because you know the verse from the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, you got a priest, you've got a spoon to put the ghee, you've got fire, you've got coconut, you've got grains to put in. So somebody may say, that's all material stuff. These are material elements. But Krishna says, if you put all these together, and the whole purpose of them together is to make an offering to God. He said, then all of those things, because you're using them in the service of Krishna, they turn from matter to spirit. And you can do that with anything, because originally everything is spiritual. It gets changed by our consciousness. Our consciousness transforms the external world around us. And if our consciousness is fixed on serving Krishna, that's our intention, and it's what we're thinking, everything that we use in our life is for Krishna, then it changes. And it no longer is matter, but it becomes spiritual. And here's an example that Prabhupada, who's, by the way, the founder, an acharya, the founder means he started this branch of Vaishnavism, and this branch means ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which is part of a line of teachers that come all the way down from Krishna. Starting with Krishna, and then he taught Brahma, and then Narada, and then Vyasa, and there's a list of the major teachers. Of course, there's millions and millions that are all involved in passing it down over many generations, but some of the big names are mentioned. And then he comes in that line, and in 1965, he came to America. In 1966, he incorporated what's called the International Society for Car Racing. International Society for Long-Distance Swimming. The International Society for Gourmet Cooking. No. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And in that, he specially presented the Bhagavad Gita. But in his presentation of the Bhagavad Gita, which he calls As It Is, he said when the speaker is presenting you shouldn't misinterpret his words. You should take them as they are. And he pointed out that many of the Bhagavad Gitas in the world would turn the whole Bhagavad Gita into a metaphor meaning something else, or would discredit the speaker by saying he didn't really mean what he was saying, he meant something else. And he said, that kind of presentation will not be helpful. Take the direct meaning of the words of the teacher, Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita. And in his presentation of Bhagavad Gita, he gives commentary. And in the commentary, one of the examples, analogies, I like analogies that are like thought bridges. It explains a philosophical point really simply and really quickly so everyone can grasp it. As far as transformation goes, turning matter into spirit, he gave the following example. That if you take an iron bar or rod, where do you see one of those generally? I think either a blacksmith. Do we have any blacksmiths here? Anybody study that? You're a blacksmith, Kanka? We didn't know. Right, her husband is a blacksmith. And if a blacksmith takes a piece of iron, like an iron rod, and puts it into the blacksmith's fire, and then you have to really get it hot. You use one of those bellows, you know? Because the extra oxygen, it makes the fire increase in its heat. And then you leave that iron rod in the fire. What happens to it, Kanka? Better give her a microphone because the people online are thinking that maybe I'm faking this conversation.
And you can start to bend it because it becomes pliable.
It's pliable. Does it change colors?
And it changed colors. It becomes like fire.
What color is the fire?
Red hot.
It becomes red hot. I've seen it before too. In Japan, there are blacksmiths up in the mountains, a place called Takayama. It's a traditional town. A lot of tourists go there, and there's a whole street where blacksmiths are working with metal. And when you walk by, you can notice that there are various pieces of metal, iron in the fire. And if you come back a little later, you'll notice that they're red hot, and then they can bend them. So matter can transform even when it's in contact with other material elements that are a different kind of, or a higher type of energy. So similarly, we can transform anything in our lives, including our own minds. Mind is material or spiritual? It's material. Does anybody disagree with that? The mind is material. What do you think? Kanka, what is your...
It's only material if that's how you're thinking, but if you're performing devotional service, bhakti yoga, then it's spiritual.
Okay, well that jumps us ahead to the way in which you can spiritualize the mind, because just like the iron rod, if you leave it in fire, then it becomes red hot and pliable, and similarly the mind engaged in thinking of Krishna, hearing about Krishna, then that also becomes transformed and spiritual. And when it becomes spiritualized, then the mind becomes effective in making the right kinds of decisions, seeing the world through the right lens. So these are two of the main ways in which Prabhupada explains the process of Krishna consciousness and how practical it is. What's number one? Yeah, one person remembered. What was the first part? Harinama, Harinama, Hariname Vakevalam, Kalau Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva. Fantastic. So this is a foundational principle. It's to chant Hare Krishna. So how would you do that? Well, you can just at any time repeat especially the Maha Mantra, which goes like this: Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I don't know if we can do that. Does it work? Let's hear. Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. I have a meter problem with that somehow. I don't know why. But that you can sing it anytime you want, or you can repeat the names of Krishna. Let's try it. We'll say the Maha Mantra together 3 times. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. And then you can also do Sankirtan, which means to sing together. And this is also in the vein of the teaching of repeating the holy name, but to music. So, shall we try that? Yes. Okay, let's do. I'm going to say first a couple of introductory mantras, which are to the founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, and also to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna, who's an avatar who came to teach the chanting of Hare Krishna. And then we'll chant the Hare Krishna mantra. I offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual master and to all of you who are devotees of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for being here. The next very solid practice of Krishna consciousness is to read the Bhagavad Gita. But not just read it, but also distribute it. And there's a reason for that. When we read the Bhagavad Gita, we get aligned with the intelligence of God. That sounds like a grandiose claim. But if one reads the Bhagavad Gita regularly, one will experience this for him or herself. It's commonsensical, what Krishna says. It also resonates with the reader. And near the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the teachings of the Gita that he's giving are so important that if someone takes to imparting them to others, that person who teaches them to others becomes particularly dear to Krishna. And how dear does one become? Krishna says, there's no one more dear to me. This is inside information, meaning it's inside the Bhagavad Gita. Only problem is people don't open it that much. They have a sense that my grandmother read it, so I'm good. But we do well for ourselves when we actually read the words and go through the teachings. And when we experience how the Bhagavad Gita edifies us and helps us to navigate through the various complexities of life, helps us to adjust our expectations, which in and of itself is helpful in living a balanced life, then we feel confident about making it available to other people. And we do see also when we give the Bhagavad Gita to those who don't know about it, and then they begin reading it, then they're likely to transform, or their consciousness transforms. They transform, their consciousness transforms, and they can end up, if they're not careful, becoming devoted to Krishna and living a very different lifestyle than they were before. You have to be careful. Don't read it too much. So you want to become too spiritual, right? Right? That's the time you go, no, wrong. And if you'd like to become more spiritual, to transform from matter to spirit, material thoughts to spiritual thoughts, one of the ways to do it is to read Bhagavad Gita regularly. A few samples from the Bhagavad Gita. Commonsensical ways that Krishna talks about. The knowledge that is most beneficial for us. In the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Maya sakta mana partha yogam yunjan manashraya asamshayam samagramam yata gyasasi tachchinu. That you can apply yourself to this spiritual practice by hearing from Krishna. And he says, make this hearing, adhere to it. That is, fix your mind. Make your mind attached. Attach your mind to the teachings that I'm giving, he says. Mana sakta, with mind attached to me. He says, if you do this and you just hear what I have to say, that's not very hard. And here's a side tip that Prabhupada gives frequently. Even if you don't understand everything you hear, it's okay. Oftentimes, we're used to a class where we have to get everything because it's going to be on the test. Have you ever been in that situation? They say this will be on the test. And then you become a little tenser and you're thinking, I have to hear this so carefully, maybe take notes, write it down and everything like that. And when we're hearing Bhagavad Gita, of course, we want to have that type of intensity, but we may not understand all the concepts at first, but Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that if you apply yourself to hearing, then I'll give you the intelligence so that you can understand it. You'll come to understand it if you're just sincere about hearing. And you'll have very clear knowledge about how the world works. He says in the next verse, Jnanam teham savijnanam idam bhakshami sheshdaha yajgyatva nehabhuno najgyatavyam avashishyate. That is, by hearing from me, you can come to know about the two major categories of energy, material and spiritual, and you'll know the difference between them. This will be very helpful, because oftentimes people think that if something looks beautiful in this world, if I pursue it, then I'll be happy. But Krishna says, wait, not so fast. It might be a reflection of reality. It may not be the real beauty that you're looking for. There may not be substantive. So he said, you'll come to know by hearing from Bhagavad Gita what's real and what's not real. What's a material phenomena that it comes and goes, and you'll get to know what's actually really good for you. Then he breaks it down even more, and in the next verse he says, Bhumir apo analo vayu kamano bhutirevacha ahankara itiyame binna prakritirashtara. This is a list of all things that are material, gross and subtle. So that list includes earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence. I don't know if I find any in here, but intelligence and false ego, lots of that. So there's these gross and subtle material elements. And he said, these are the material elements. And then he says in the next breath, besides these, apare matastanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam darite jagat. Besides these material elements, there's something else, which is consciousness. It's a para prakriti. It's energy, but it's superior energy. And that special energy is, wait for it, you. You're the consciousness in the body, and it's the consciousness that's different from matter. You can't make consciousness from matter. You can't get a recipe somewhere and say, I'll put a little dirt from my yard, and then what else do you need? You get a little bicycle pump, put in some air, add some water from a pond, and throw in these material elements, stir it all up, put it in your easy bake oven or microwave, and next thing you know, you got a little person walking around. And no, it doesn't work that way. matter and spirit are completely different. And he says, Itadyonini bhutani sarvanityu padaraya aham kritsnacha jagataha prabhava pralayastata. Of all that is material, and all is spiritual, because he just mentioned what's the material and what's spiritual, he said it all comes from me. Then he starts giving examples from the material world. For instance, he says, Bijam mam sarva bhutanam vidiparta sanatanam bhutir buddhimantam asmi tejas vinamaham. He said you can look at a seed. He said, I'm the power of every seed in the world. There are different kinds of seeds. He said the very fascinating, mystical quality of a seed where it comes into a plant, he said, that's me. If you want to be able to think of me and see me, look at seeds and think, that's Krishna. And he says that whenever you see intelligence in someone, that's coming from him. And then he says, Balam balabatam chaham kamaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddhu puteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. That if you see strength in somebody, that I'm that strength. And he said there's religious principles, especially in regulating procreation. And he said when you see somebody following those principles, in other words, not just for their own enjoyment, but actually to make offspring who are fully conscious, he said, that's me. Ye chaiva satvika bhava rajasastamasasjaye mateveti tanvidi natvaham teshu te mai. He said all the combinations and permutations, everything that you see within the material world, these are coming from the force of my modes of nature, through which the whole material world is controlled. Step by step, he gives us a vision of how to see the world in a different way, how to see matter, how to see spirit, how to see Krishna within everything. And the Bhagavad Gita starts off by mentioning that Krishna says to Arjuna, who's in great anxiety because he feels his whole life is threatened. He has to go in the battlefield and do his duty, but he's going to be killing those whom he cares about more than anyone else, who actually form his identity. They're the ones that he wants to show how powerful he is, but he has to confront them in battle. And Krishna then says, you won't die, neither will anybody on this battlefield die. You have to do your duty at this time. But just hearing from Krishna straightforwardly that the soul never dies is transformative. It's a revelation that everyone needs to have in order to rise above the anxieties of life. If we go throughout the whole Bhagavad Gita, we'll find that each chapter gives this wealth of information, knowledge, so we can be self-determining, so that we're not entangled in useless activities or we're forced to do things beyond our control. We can become masters of our own senses. And not only that, we can develop a relationship with Krishna. In the Gita, Krishna says, how do you do that? Just be sincere. And he says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. If you're sincere and you try and you ask for help, then Krishna says from within your heart, I'll give you help. There is a wealth of knowledge in the world. People have written about tens of thousands of subject matters. Even in today's bookstores, you'll find people have written about many aspects of the material world. And even there's some spiritual books, but they're nondescript. They don't give very precise or clear knowledge about who we are, what our source is, who God is. But Bhagavad Gita is not one of those ones that's nondescript. It's very clear. It's very straightforward, and anyone who reads the Bhagavad Gita as it is will have a better life, and they'll be able to improve themselves. Many other products on the market make such a claim. Infinite Beauty was a name of a shop in Palo Alto. They used to give little samples when we go by for Harinam. I think they closed. But remember that? Infinite Beauty? And they pass out little packets. You could open it. And I think if you put it on, then you'd be infinitely beautiful. I got a packet, but I never opened it, as you can tell. And so there's that, and then there's lots and lots of self-help in the world. People give advice about ways to prop yourself up so that you can deal with all the problems. None of you have any problems, right? But only Bhagavad Gita gives foundational spiritual knowledge so that one can permanently rise above the difficulties in life. And it was one of the main missions of Krishna in speaking the Bhagavad Gita, to see that everybody in the world would be able to come in contact with it, hear from it, and benefit. And it was one of the main missions of our founder Acharya, is to make sure everyone in the world could get Bhagavad Gita. So at the present time, the Bhagavad Gita is available in several languages. That's also miraculous, because just getting it into English, translated from the Sanskrit, and then as Prabhupada has written this book with a word-for-word transliteration, and then there's the translation itself and then a commentary so people can understand what it means. That's rare. But now that format is translated into several languages. Can you name any of the languages the Bhagavad Gita as it is has been translated into? Okay, Spanish. The English, Spanish, Russian, French, Mandarin, Arabic, Zulu, Vietnamese. I said Mandarin. What? Tamil. Telugu. Let's not get going on Indian language. You'll be here all day. Bangla. It's in Bengali. Yeah. How many Bengali speakers in here? Haribo. Yeah, it's in Bangla. Anything else? What else? I said Vietnam. Korean. Anything else? Hungarian? Is it in Hungarian? Say yes. It's in Hungarian. Try Europe. Try a few in Europe. You'll luck out. Is it in German? You have to say yes in German. Yes. No, that's English. Huh? Portuguese. Is it in Portuguese? See? Swedish? Yeah. Farsi. You have a list? It's in a lot of languages. That's a lot of people dedicated to Bhagavad Gita as it is. Because in order to translate the whole work into another language, you basically have to camp out for a long time and just dedicate yourself to translating it. And once you have a book, it can be delivered anywhere in the world. It's one of the miracles of books. One thing I love about books is their delivery systems. And when you have something worthwhile delivering, it's very exhilarating to unleash that on the world. People like to send things out into the world and that might have a good effect. And if they're in a lower consciousness, they like to send things out that don't have such a good effect. People send out computer viruses, and they sit back thinking like, oh, how many people's lives did I mess up? And of course, people have missiles they like to shoot and like ruin parts of the world by their destructive nature. But how nice is it to have something you can send out into the world that does good for everybody? Doesn't that feel good? Wouldn't that be a nice job if you had that job? That all you did was send out little missiles. When they explode, everybody became happy. And it solved all their problems. How'd you like to have a bomb that solved everybody's problems? And you just fly around in your airplane all day and drop bombs and like, whoosh. So save that town. That's what Bhagavad Gita is. It was originally a dialogue that was spoken by Krishna, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knows everything. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishani chabhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. He says, I know everything. And when you put it somewhere, then it will explode. The knowledge will come out, explode into the mind and the heart of the person who reads it. It'll start a chain reaction. Just like any explosive device, there's some chain reaction that takes place. This is the work of those who have a sense in their hearts that they want to do something for others. It's a natural feeling to want to do something for others, isn't it? I see all the time people, they'll be driving 100 miles an hour along the freeway, see a little kitten by the side of the road, and they'll slam on their brakes. They'll come out, they'll risk their lives trying to save the kitten. Coax them into a little, get in my jacket, I'll take you home, we'll feed you, we'll take care of you. We made a house for a kitten. Does that sound familiar? Isn't that every other YouTube video in the world? Save a kitten. It's there. We want to do good for somebody. We want to see, how can I help? Well, there's millions and billions of good causes in this world, but there's only one great cause. A great cause is to impart the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita so that people can come to their original consciousnesses, which is full of bliss and knowledge. And at the very least, so that they can have this confidence that I'm not part of this world, I don't die, I have a relationship with God, and they can begin their journey back home, back to Godhead. That's extraordinary. In fact, it's the main purpose of the world. And if you can align yourself with the main purpose of the world, then you'll be very successful. If you go against the main purpose of the world, then always have some pinching anxiety that maybe I could be doing better. Maybe there's something better I could do for people. But when it comes to the distribution of the Bhagavad Gita to both yourself and to other people, that's the pinnacle. Why? Because Bhagavad Gita is understandable by most people in the world. It's at a level that's simple enough for people to read, listen to, and then attain enlightenment. Even in one reading, they can attain enlightenment and liberation. What to speak if they embrace it and they take it into their homes. Here's a list of the people just in the last week who have become enlightened by reading Bhagavad Gita. 77 people read Bhagavad Gita and became enlightened. Just in this neighborhood. So, what if you made that your focus in life? What if you thought to yourself, if I want to do something good in life, let me do the best that I can for other people. My friend Richie Corsa, Richie, if you're out there listening, grew up with Richie Corsa. The Corsa family had 7 kids. And we used to go play at their house, they'd play at our house. We go in the mountains together, everything like that. And then when I became a teenager, I decided I had enough. I'd seen enough. I was convinced this material world was not for me. And I took extreme measures to extricate myself. But I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I was making things up as I went. I gave away all my stuff. I started chanting a mantra. It turned out to be Rama, so that was okay. And as I was doing that, Richie Corsa came knocking at my door and said, "Hey, I got something for you." And he gave me the gift that led me to Bhagavad Gita. It was a magazine called Back to Godhead. And it had an advertisement for the Bhagavad Gita as it is. I had my mom drive me to Shambhala Books in Berkeley, California on Telegraph Avenue. I went in and I said, "I want this book and anything else by this author." And they brought me Bhagavad Gita, Sri Upanishad, and On the Way to Krishna. And that book transformed me even while I was standing in line to purchase it at the store. What to speak of when I got it home, it became my only focus in life is reading that book every single day. And I know the power of books. They can show up anywhere. They'll go out and they may not be for the person, Prabhupada said, who first receives it. It may be meant for somebody else, and that person's a conduit. Whatever it is, it's sort of an emergency situation. At least this is how I feel. I feel the world is teetering. Of course, I said that to Shamasundar, who was 81 years old, and he said the world's always been teetering. It's just teetering in different ways, in different eras. But teetering it is, especially in Kali Yuga, and we have a way to give people relief. What to speak of spreading a consciousness that will actually affect change in the world. And it's best done, and I can argue this till the rest of the class and longer, through the distribution of literature. It holds in human society. Humans respect the written word. What to speak of it if when it's bound and in it's a book, and what to speak of it's a famous book that's been read by millions of people who highly recommend it. It's a winning proposition, Bhagavad Gita. It's a flat-out winner. And distributing the Bhagavad Gita is good work if you can get it. Drop the bombs that transform people's lives and open their hearts and allow them to experience the real happiness in life. See? Even when I talk about it, the heavens open. The dancing apsaras are going. That's your Bollywood for you. So I recommend invest in Bhagavad Gita. If you want to buy stocks, buy Bhagavad Gita stocks. That's what we sell here. One kind of stock. We have a mutual fund. It includes, it's diversified. It's no load. We have Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, a plethora of other books. You can invest in it. And it's like, I'm investing in that. What do you invest in? What's your portfolio? I'm an ISV. Well, those guys have book stocks, right? Yeah, not any book. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. I invest in them, and you get an unlimited return. Other kinds of things, you can invest in aerospace. You can invest in bomb makers who make real bombs. You'll get some kind of return, but it'll be more on the bad karma side. But when you invest in books, the upside is unlimited. And it's not just for those who invest in it, but those who participate in distributing books. It's a great joy because everyone wants to give a gift. Don't you hate it when you have to decide what to give people and you have no idea? Only one person hates that? I hate it worse than anything. And I can't decide, and what's to speak of somebody gives you a lame gift? Have you ever received a lame gift? Did you give it to somebody else? You can't even do that, because then they'll think you're lame. And you can't get rid of it because they might come to your house and you're like, hey, where's my thing? You're just stuck. And that doesn't happen with Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is like, where'd you get that? I got that from this person. It's like, well, they must be a very high-minded person. It's a perfect for everyone. Oftentimes we meet people, we show Bhagavad Gita And they say, I already have Bhagavad Gita, I already know Bhagavad Gita, and I say, it's not for you, as I'm handing it to them. That causes some cognitive dissonance. I'm handing the book and say, this is not for you, because they said, I already know this. Of course, we never want to say, I already know everything, right? Because then you can't learn. My godbrother, the great Mahatma Prabhu, always said, I like to say there's a few words that block all learning, and that is, I already know that. But when people say, I already know Bhagavad Gita, and they say, yes, it's not for you, this is for somebody who doesn't know it yet. This is our movement. So, we're counting down the days till Gita Jayanti. We call that World Gita Day. We translate it into World Gita Day, so people all over the West, they'll also appreciate. They don't know what Gita Jayanti is, but World Bhagavad Gita Day, they can appreciate. And right now, we're in a worldwide campaign called Live to Give. Everyone say. Live to give. It's a fantastic moniker, isn't it? When you give, you live, and your life grows. And so we had a meeting this morning with leaders from all over North America. And we heard from everyone how they're organizing to distribute millions of Bhagavad Gitas. In 2020, we had a goal to distribute at least 1 million Bhagavad Gitas. And people would remark regularly, oh, how are you going to do 1 million Bhagavad Gitas? And guess what our goal is this year for the world? 3.7 million Bhagavad Gitas. Say Haribol. Haribol! But not so fast, because it's not enough. And I'll tell you why I think it's not enough. Our friends, the Gideon Bible people, they're going to do about 60 million Bhagavad Gitas. They're going to do 60 million Bibles this year. We're at 3.7. And recently when I was in India, I went to a meeting, all the temple presidents from all over India. And there, the devotees were making pledges from each one of their communities from around India to contribute towards the overall goal of 3.7 million Bhagavad Gitas in the world. And I registered my complaint. I said, I shouldn't say this because it's already in the video. What? I says to him, I said, it's not enough. The Gideons are doing way more than we are. And the person next to me said out loud so everyone can hear him, said, yeah, but they've been doing it longer. And I said, that's not true. I said, we're called the Sampradaya of the book. And if you look for photographic evidence on the cover of the Sri Brahma Samhita. Does anybody have a copy handy? Here, just hand me one. On the cover of the Sri Brahma Samhita, there's a photograph taken with iPhone minus 2 billion, iPhone minus half of 311 trillion. This is taken with an iPhone, this picture of Brahma at the beginning of creation. And you may notice that Brahma, that's Brahma, he's holding a book in his hand. Did you know that? You look more carefully next time. Holding a book, because we're called the Sampradaya. Sampradaya means the company that gives the complete gift. Sam means complete, Pradaya means to give. So we give the complete gift. And Brahma's holding a book. So I said to this person next to me, that's not true. We started at the beginning of creation, and we're still way behind the Gideons. So we better pick up the pace. And that's really my feeling. We should think in a big way. We should put resources behind Bhagavad Gita stock. You can buy stock in Bhagavad Gita. It'll go out to the whole world. You'll get the credit for it. You can also just take up the habit of keeping Bhagavad Gita with you at home. And my recommendation is that you get several cases of Bhagavad Gita and pile them one on top of the other in front of your refrigerator. And then you tell your whole family, no eating, no even opening this refrigerator till they're all distributed. They'll be gone in like half a day. Whatever way you do it, if you get into this business, you'll become very dear to Krishna. Whatever way you contribute, whether you buy stock in Bhagavad Gita, which we do here, our ISV mutual fund, or you decide to take the books yourself and pass them out, or you go out with the devotees who are doing it, they'll show you how fun it is. There's nothing more fun. You can't have any more fun in human life than going out on book distribution. I'll stand by that and argue it for the rest of the night. So, I've made my preamble to a possible event which may or may not take place in the very, very near future, where we have a IPO. Tonight, it could be tonight, an IPO. What's it called? Initial public offering? Is that what it's called? Yes. Tonight is our IPO for Bhagavad Gita, buying stock in Bhagavad Gita. So get ready. And now we're going to have one more little kirtan, just after I answer any questions, but you have 5 seconds to decide whether you want to ask something or not. 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's do the China tune.